Hello there. Let me start by saying that this video might be slightly underlit because I have returned from an optometrist because I am half blind, and let's just say that I'm not going to be lying to you today. Maybe on the next video. Anyway, today I'm going to try something new because I wrote an actual script for this video and I'm using the teleprompter thingy, because I want to be professional like all those professional YouTubers out there. So, using the occasion, which is being Sram trying to enamor us with its new wireless offering, I'd like to offer my little rant about electronic groups. And by a little I mean massive, because even when I scribbled the script, which I'm reading from here, I knew it's going to be 30 minutes long. Anyhow, in a nutshell, Sram, being the morally hollow priest of consumerist capitalism, has blessed us with its new wireless offering, which is the Sram Red Eagle Axis ETAP group set, which is going to be 12 speed, goes down to 10-230 back, and obviously is available in a road and a mountain mutation version. Of course, the most important feature of this group set is being wireless, because, well, it's a Halo product and being wireless is the Halo thing to do right now. So, I could babble on about the changes they made and the philosophy behind it, but essentially all they did is trying to distinguish the product from what's already there. And after all, we all know that the 5339 chainrings we used for so many years are so mid-80s, so you gotta change stuff, right? Anyway, Sram Eagle Axis Red ETAP is going to be a very refined product, and obviously it's going to work as advertised, as it's being advertised at this very moment by GCNs, bike radars and the like. They are already reviewing it, and obviously they are considering the next best thing right after, well, a wheel and penicillin, I guess. So I decided to be the one that's going to be complaining. You see, in SRAM world, MTBs just got an electronic option for an existing group set, which is fine, that's just an extension of what's already there. Okay, although I'm going to complain that having just a single option for a 12-speed cassette on an MTB kinda sucks. Anyway, it's an incremental update, that's fine. On the road, however, we get a well-engineered set of parts that are so dependent on each other that incremental update from what you already had or could have had previously is impossible. Thusly, if you are like me and want to celebrate your midlife crisis by getting a set of those toys, you better start saving up, because it's going to cost you $4,200, more or less, for the entire group set, if you want to go for all the bells and whistles. But fine, that is a one-time spend, right? Well, maybe, but if I were a sucker that bought the ETAP group set 2 years ago for not the similar amount of money, I'd be kind of annoyed. And here's why. Let's presuppose that this is a actual SRAM Red Axis ETAP whatever shifter. It's made out of $3 of plastic, $4 of carbon, $5 of, well, electronics of some sort, 50 cents of steel and aluminum, $5 of Chinese child labor, and of course the wireless emitter of wirelessness, which is, well, the point of the group, really. I believe this one is set to tickle. And no, I'm not going to be complaining about the price, although I probably should. And I'm going to note that the hydraulic version of this shifter is going to add some seals and extra machining, so $10 extra. What I'm going to complain about is that in the comparison to a proper mechanical shifter, like this one actually is, the electronic one is just a dumb on-off switch, and it is not really more complicated than a $5 Pro Max lever. So, considering that we have just a bunch of micro switches and a wireless emitter of gamma rays, I have to ask, why are these levers incompatible with the previous generation of ETAP? with mechanical groups, I could believe that there are leverage ratios and pulleys and mechanical advantage and some sort of mechanical problem which you need to handle. And the mechanism here inside isn't precisely simple, as anyone who tried to disassemble a Shimano drifter tried and failed can attest. But with electronics, you see, electronics is just a venerated on-off switch with a lot of carbon on top. And you can already program them to do some quite stuff. You can shift the rear with the left hand, you can turn your lights, I don't know, you can bicycle stalk as you watch Dow Jones on your head unit. So, once again, why are those shifters incompatible with the previous generation of ETAP? But frankly, that's not the worst of it. You see, the previous ETAP rederailleur surely has the range of motion sufficient to handle the 12-speed group. After all, the cassette can't be much wider than that, the chain is narrower, and 11-speed cassettes are already pretty wide. So I have to ask another uncomfortable question. Why switching to 12-speed for current owners of ETAP, all the 5 guys who could afford it, isn't just a software update to the controller of those derailleurs and investment in the XDR driver and 12-speed cassette and chain? Because I think that should be everything you need to go there. And of course, I'm fairly sure it isn't just greed by SRAM and desire to sell people entire group sets. Because you see, electronic shifting is frankly comprised mostly of a simple servo motor in the derailleur, some sort of control unit, and an on-off switch here. Such system has to be completely transparent to things such as a form of the shifter, be it a drifter like this one, or a grip shift, or a trigger. Derailleur type should be completely irrelevant. The direction in which the shifting takes place also should be, frankly, not really important. Number of cogs should be not important. The size of chain rings, as long as the derailleur can climb them, not really much of an issue. You see, if I had a desire to throw money at electronic groups such as an ETAP or Di2, I frankly would expect that anything branded as such would be compatible with anything else. But at least SRAM, with the AXS stuff, tries to understand that people might want to mix and match their equipment. So I'm not going to complain about Shimano. You see, Shimano is 4 or so years before SRAM in this electronic shifting, and in that time they managed to create an Eldritch Hydra of incompatible parts that you can't really mix and match because, well, reasons known only to Shimano. You can't reliably mix road and mountain and trekking parts, even though trekking, I believe, existed for several years before the road parts came out. And if you want to, for example, use an MTB mountain derailleur on a road drivetrain, you can't do it unless you also use a mountain front derailleur, which kind of misses the point now, doesn't it? So, let's go to the core of my rant here. You see, the cosmic ray actuation in those derailleurs and equipment is what a software developer would call an abstraction layer. A shifter doesn't really know what it's dealing with, and frankly it shouldn't. It's just a switch after all. All it does, it just sends a signal to click by one somewhere. Whatever control system there is just a control for a servo step motor unit somewhere, which is, considering the thickness of the typical chain and cogs, infinitely precise. The software merely transforms the order of click by one to move the mechanism of the derailleur by several millimeters to somewhere, left, right, whatever you might want to shift low normal. The point being, it's all in software. Thus, there is no justification why the electronic groups are such a mess of incompatible parts. One that is obviously well behaved, greatly machined, working as advertised when everything is matched to itself, but nonetheless, it's a pretty mess. There really is no reason why one would not want to mix and match electronic components, and SRAM at least has a faint understanding of this concept with those AXS stuff. But obviously they showed a big middle finger to those who bought ETAP before. Shimano appears to be hell-bent in making its offering a disjointed chaos of incompatible parts, road and mountain alike. I mean, really, regardless of whether electronic or not, I really think that the person who made the decision in Shimano to break the compatibility between road and mountain group sets and keep that incompatibility going should be, I don't know, shot and disposed in a lime pit. There really is no reason why it should be impossible to program the electronic groups to work on 10, 9 or 5-speed drivetrain. It should be possible to retrofit your 1976 Botteccia 10-speed of the 2x5 variety with an electronic group set, because why not? You could program it to work like that. In all honesty, one should be able to program the system to shoot whatever, including the custom-made cassette with a custom-made cogs, or vintage Santur cassettes with their variable cog spacing, or Campagnolo cassettes, because, well, why not? But at minimum, I have an expectation, one that has failed me numerous times before, that a manufacturer is going to iteratively build upon its previous product portfolio, each time allowing for an incremental update for an existing equipment for its existing customers. This has been mostly true for Shimano product line up until 9-speed, with the sore point of the front derailleur ratio being different between road bikes and mountain bikes. Recently, however, and by recently I mean since 10 cogs at the back took hold and SRAM made dish-side cassettes a thing, Shimano behaves like a beheaded chicken running around pointlessly and using its superior manufacturing capacity, which it has, or capability which it has, to create ever malformed response to SRAM, which, well, is frankly being itself, because SRAM Red Eagle AXS ETAP is just another entry in the never-ending stack of SRAM products which they introduce, trying to dazzle us with blingage, and then abandon 2 or 3 or 4 years after, leaving a trail of failed products like Hammerschmidt, you remember those? And successful ones like the entire XX1 drivetrains. In the end, the users of those things are left with little to no support or spare parts, and you have to hunt for them. And in the worst case, they are left with a pile of perfectly operable gear left in indefinite storage because essential elements of the system which they cooperate with are no longer available. Because, you see, that's a problem, because if I splurge for an SRAM Red ETAP AXS or Shimano Dura Ace Di2, why are names so complicated? Anyway, if I break something in those systems 2 or 3 or 4 years down the line, I don't really believe at this point that the respective manufacturer is going to provide me with a replacement, and that kind of sucks. Because their recent moves and the electronic group sets are the best showing of this trend, they are just trying to sell me more and more gear which is more and more dependent on itself. It is not built iteratively on what was previously before available. And I mean, I can still shift 1989 Syst stuff by Shimano with 10-speed road shifters made in 2009. And by can, I mean I do, because I did at some point shift the Diore DX from 1993, Diore DX from 1993 with an Ultegra shifter like this one, 6600 10 speed, so there is a 25-year span between those two. Anyway, I'm going to complain too much. You see, At this point, I don't really think that the extra features brought by the electronic shifting, which is the effortless shifting, which is pretty, and the cool factor, because you don't have any wires on your bicycle, really warrant expense in the electronic shifting. And notwithstanding the very little support the manufacturers are either willing to give to previous customers of those things, there is another issue here, because the lack of compatibility means that you can't really mix and match those things, and I think that the selling point of the electronic group should be its interoperability, very complicated word, with previously existing equipment. And that would, for example, make using the dish-sized cassettes on road bikes much easier. Shimano is unwilling to do it. SRAM kind of has a point in this situation, or at this moment, because the AXS stuff actually does work like that. But in closing, I have three major issues apart from that with the electronic shifting. First of all, such systems should be blind to cock count or spacing. Secondly, everything branded ETAP, Di2, EPS should always, with no exceptions, work with anything else branded the same. And thirdly, if something from a previous ultra awesome electronic group set breaks, it seems that no replacement are going to be provided, because the next iteration of electronic group is not going to work with the previous one. And I know this is first world problems, sour grapes and whatnot. But you see, I really like the concept of electronic actuation, precisely because it is an abstraction layer, which means that in theory I should be able to mix and match everything I want. And history knows that I tried and succeeded in a few such attempts and really liked the result. Yet current implementations are such a mess that I don't really trust them. People overwhelmingly obviously like the effortless shifting, and that's fine, but I see planned obsolescence, vendor locking, marketing schemes trying to lock us out of features which should be there from the start. And those, I think, that are deeply unethical practices by both manufacturers, and actually all three of them, because after I wrote the script I got to know that Campagnolo, with its newest iteration of EPS, the 12-speed iteration, is also going to break compatibility with previous generation. Why? Try to guess. You see, cycling, at least recently, seems to have reached the stage of evolution that it's being so matured that there is very little place to improve. Although I might be wrong in this, but obviously we don't know what's the next big thing. What's the next big thing is going to be. After all, no one expected that everyone is going to jump on the one by bandwagon, and everyone did. Even SRAM didn't expect it to be such a success. But even the most basic equipment you can buy today, such as Sora or X5, works reliably for years. In response to that, manufacturers which want to keep the shareholders happy and profits flow are trying to desperately find the next big thing, and if they can't, they resort to rather shady practices, as I outlined before. And this thing bred us 50mm front axle, boost rear spacing, which is a candidate for a next really sour rant by yours truly. And you know, apparently the red SRAM AXS ETAP is going to be a next installment in this process. Apparently, another thing I got to know after I wrote the script, apparently the chain of the 12-speed AXS ETAP, what have you, has rollers slightly bigger than before, so you can't use the chainrings, older chainrings, on the newer drivetrain, which kinda sucks for the second time, because if you wanted to ride 5339 classic road rings, or on the other hand you wanted to use it on a gravel bike and use a, I don't know, 39 by 26, you can't do it. All that because, well, reasons. Anyhow, I think I ranted enough, so thank you for your undivided attention. I hope this was entertaining, because it was new for me. I never done this before, and looking at the glass all-seeing eye of the internet and reading something you wrote 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days ago is kind of difficult, apparently. I didn't expect it to be so hard. So, thank you for your undivided attention. If you liked it, consider subscribing to the channel. Tell everyone you know about it, because I want all those subscriptions, because they keep me from, I don't know, I'm happy when that little number is growing. I can't lie. Thank you for your attention and see you on the next one.